Hey, 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 what is up, man? We are just days away from the national title game, as you know. And, what's interesting with all this? Well, first up, I'm now, you're hearing the chirping about the Raiders, the NFL, as they do, poking around. Oh, Cignetti should go to the NFL and all this other stuff. And to me, what jumped off, it's like the NFL is like a predator. The NFL is like a pedophile looking at a children's playground to see what coach they can get. I mean, that's what it resembles like itself. You know, and and it's not some. I don't know if it's NFL. People are certainly fans. Certainly those that ilk of NFL fandom peoples, the talking heads and this and that and the others on the media and what have you, always trying to throw something out there just to rattle shake stuff, just to clickbait, just to do all this stuff, because this is what they do and this is the environment that they do it in. And so Cignetti's not going anywhere. Okay, let's just put the end to that. He is a college coach guy. He loves college coach. He knows he's on the back end of his career, and he wants Indiana to be his final stop. He's said this emphatically when he got his raise and all that stuff. When it was rumored again that Penn State was trying to, and some of these other schools that was had job openings was wanting to get some of him, right? Especially Penn State. And credit to Indiana for jumping right on top of that to get him re-signed as soon as they felt that them crows, them vultures was coming around trying to snag him away, which typically happens when you have a coach who does well at an upstart program, who does well at a lower level type program, a non-blue blood, a non-perennial type program. This is the general script. And then what ended up happening, that coach ended up leaving to go to what seems supposed to be greater pastures. Doesn't always work out that way, but that's what's on the surface. Certainly a bigger check. Certainly a bigger check, if anything. They might not last long because we didn't seen more than a few of these disastrous hires. And that coach, which had, again, they're going for the bag like these young players, a lot of these young players are doing. So they're going for the bag, which, okay, so you're going to get the money, but you won't have a job in 2 years or 3 years. But you got paid. And see, that's where that equilibrium thing, does it really equate itself? So you can be at the school where you at another 5 to 7, even 10 years, or you can take another job, get paid more, but you'll be out of a job in 3 years. And that's sort of like the equation, because you only have that 2 to 3 year window to win. If you ain't winning those 2 3 years, they're gonna be getting rid of your butt. I mean, just look at the sample size of coaching carousels that we've seen, and it has been expedited. The college coaching blueprint has emulated the NFL to where you got to win now. You don't have no 3, 4, 5 years to get it together and all that kind of stuff. You got to win now. Okay, especially at a perennial blue blood program. You certainly got to win now. They ain't waiting for you get a whole recruiting class and then that recruiting class cycles up to being juniors and seniors and then say, okay, now we can win with them. not getting that kind of comfort. So Cignetti's not going anywhere. So these folks with all this fluff needs to, again, they need a storyline to talk about. So that's what they're doing there. Indiana, I mean, if they do what they do, this game they will dominate this game. If it's going to take them doing some heavy, uncharacteristic things, multitude of uncharacteristic things to lose this game, they're going to have to come in uncharacteristic of everything that we have seen on their resume. They're going to have to be the opposite of that. Okay? They're going to have to make multiple turnovers. They're going to have multitude of penalties. They're going to have to play scared, play tight, play, again, weaknesses left and right will be exposed of things that we say, well, we didn't see that. There would be coaching blunders left and right. There will be lapses of stuff. I mean, like I said, it's going to take a catapult of a lot of calamity for Indiana losing this game. Simple as that. And Indiana's built different. You see, people keep trying to draw these comparisons. I mean, with Nebraska 83, and I thought about that too. I thought about that. And it's funny how that goes, that ideal just floats in the universe that way, because I thought about that as well. As soon as people, oh man, they did knock them off. And then they going into this game as a heavy favorite, going into Miami, and people who been around know the history. So, of course, you go back to that because Nebraska 83 came in the same way. Heavy favorite, knocking off everybody left and right. But the difference with the 83 Nebraska versus this Indiana, again, they're built different time. That Nebraska was largely a run team only. They had a limited passing game. As much as I love that team, Turner Grill and all them guys, they were a limited passing level team. And they went up against a Miami team that they were not used to. They were built different. Miami was built in a pro-style way. In the Big Eight that the Nebraska was in, they didn't see teams like that. It was a run league. They're playing Oklahoma. They're playing Colorado. They're playing all these teams that is run-centric. And that model worked for them. And they hadn't seen pro-style teams. So the game was kept close as a result of that. Obviously, Nebraska had a chance to win the game in the last second of that, which kept it tight. That's the only reason why Miami won it, because it was kept close. Now, Nebraska could have tied the game, and it would have been just ended in a tie. And they still would have had won the national championship. But Tom Osborne was like, and again, things went wrong for Nebraska too in that game. So it wasn't as if Miami just dominated them. Miami kept that game close, and obviously close enough to where for Nebraska on their heels, they were adjusting, trying to figure out the style and all that stuff and then everything. And then the blunder of the 2-point conversion, that which would have won the game. Okay. It was if they just drew that play up right there in the huddle. Okay. Because that play just got blown up. So there was mistakes on Nebraska's part, why they lost that game too. To keep it 100, to keep that thing in perspective. Okay. It wasn't as if Miami just came in there and just blew the doors off of Nebraska. No, Nebraska had an opportunity to win that game. They just didn't execute. So now forget that one. Let's look at this Indiana team, which I'm stating is built different. Nebraska is not the same as like how Indiana is. Indiana is a balanced, well-balanced team, and they execute. They understand the job. They're well coached. Again, Cignetti versus Cristobal, who you taking? Just right there, start with the coaching. Who you taking? And the way they're coaching. I mean, Cristobal flopped at FIU. So he didn't build the program, and he retooled himself as an assistant under Saban, then went over to Oregon, did good over there. Could have stayed there, wasn't being pushed out or anything, so he was doing good, and so forth. Then, of course, as we know, jumps over to Miami, which is his alumni school and all that, and had to go through the rigors of, again, trials and errors there too. And Miami, don't get it twisted, is a good team, okay? They're a good team. But again, it's like in a title fight, you got two very good teams going up against each other. One is going to be better because obviously you're going to have a winner. That's going to be it. And the way Indiana's built, they just match up well. They execute. They all the things that you're going to check the dots and with, they're going to, when you do a comparison, they will have more checks on their side than Miami. Okay. And so you look at that and analyze it. Now, like I said, we analyzing it to what we have seen and what we think will happen, and it kind of in that sense of it. And so we go by that because once again, in the game, like I said, anything goes, anything can happen, and I'm saying. But on the side of it will be more of what Indiana doesn't do versus what Miami does, in my opinion. It's going to be what Indiana doesn't do by what I already outlined, calamity after calamity, a mistake after mistake of what they don't do versus what Miami does against them. Because Miami's two strongest strengths are their defensive front, their primarily defensive line, their defensive ends, okay, number one, and then their running game, two, and then the X factor of, I would say, of Tony, the freshman, okay, and then four, Beck, okay, if he has time, if he has a protected pocket and all that stuff, and if he's going up against a zone defense, okay, he's good. He's shown over the weeks he's good at that, and so that's what you look at with that. Okay, as far as Miami's imbalances, things that they can do that possibly will help them, and as far as being able to win this game, and of course, similarly, as we said with the Nebraska and Miami in '84, Orange Bowl would be keeping the game as close as possible to the end. The end that either one, Indiana will make a mistake, or similarly, as with the Ole Miss game for Miami, that they will have the ball last or almost last to win or to score to go ahead, and then either not have enough time for Indiana or Indiana just doesn't execute in some capacity or don't have enough time in some capacity to win the game in the last seconds. Something similar to that. But like I said, it's going to take some things. It's going to take some uncharacteristic things. Now, Miami's going to come out hyped up and all that, ready to go, you know, as because they're going to have all their folks out there. Their alumni folks, they're big, they're Hall of Famers, they're Golden Jacket guys, and the rest of them. They're going to be all out there. You're going to see them all out there on the sideline, about 200 of them. You're going to be out there and itching as if they want to play, right? Itching, they want to be out there. And so they're going to get all that, which will give them a boost initially, Miami. Okay, but if things go wrong fast, then that's gonna tell you some stuff. And then it's gonna be an ebb and flow. Like I said, there's gonna be punch, counter punch, counter punch kind of thing, to where the thing is certainly if Indiana gets a lead of 2 scores or more, then it's gonna be ball game quickly. If they up, let alone 10-0, 14-0, it's gonna be ball game. They're not gonna relinquish that lead. Miami might score and close the lead, but they're not gonna relinquish that lead because they're the way they can go control. Because then Miami again is going to come into Miami's not being able to control the ball. Miami's not going to be able to dictate. They're going to be playing catch up, which means likely they're going to have to throw the ball more than run the ball. Because if Indiana has chewed up clock, has a lead of 2 scores or more, that puts more pressure on Miami. Okay? So that's, again, a scenario to which look. Now, let's go the other way. If Miami's up by 10, I don't see them being up more than by 10, okay? I don't see them being up by more than 10 on, I see Indiana being able to counter punch whatever Miami throws at them. If Miami scored 3, then Indiana can score 7. They can score 3 or throw 7. If Miami scores a touchdown, 7, then Indiana can come back and score a touchdown on them. I don't see this where Miami's going to neutralize Indiana's offense so much that they're going to jump out to like a 10-0 lead, 14-0 lead on Indiana. They might score a touchdown, as I said. They might score a field goal. However, similar to what you saw in the Oregon game, in the Peach Bowl, what did they do after that first drive the second drive, excuse me. The first drive was a pick 6. The second drive of Oregon, what did they do? Nothing. They didn't score, right? And so, and what else happened? Indiana's defense adjusted. Okay, so they was trying to fill them out. They was trying to get them, okay, and they corrected. See, they're a defense. They're a team that corrects itself. They might, like I said, they might let you give up something, but they're not going to just let that just go. They're going to correct. They're going to make corrections. They're a well-coached, well-experienced, disciplined team, and they're going to make corrections. They're not going to just let that be the narrative of the game. And all that, you see, like I said, it wasn't until the back end of the garbage time almost when the score was like 42-7 or something, did Oregon get his second touchdown, and largely they had backups in at that time, mixed in with some of the starters, okay, and they were playing softer defense too, okay, as well, so. As well as the last second garbage time touchdown that they scored like with less than a minute left, 2 in the game to make it look good. But just in those, like they say, the middle 8, time and all that, for the most part, they wasn't giving them nothing, and they would shut that stuff down, and they made the adjustments. So that's the kind of thing that Miami's up against in terms to what could unfold in as far as what we have seen based on the resumes. I wasn't so impressed with Miami against Ole Miss, okay? Because I looked at a lot of what Ole Miss didn't do in that game versus what Miami did. You see, I was looking at opportunities where Ole Miss, I mean, where you want to start? Okay, let's go on the offense side first. Okay, there was plays that was either badly called, poorly executed plays when they should have did this versus doing that. They should have ran the ball when they threw the ball. They should have passed the ball when they ran the ball. Okay. Then on top of that, poor execution on the play in and of itself. Then on top of that, again, misreading open guys. And as if they didn't, like I said, they didn't look as prepared for what Miami was giving them as you would have thought. Ole Miss. Now, so that's that side, just briefly with the offense and so forth. Then on the defense, I mean, my goodness, can anybody make a tackle over there? I mean, that was the most atrocious, poorly tackled game that you would expect at that level. Okay, here you are, you trying to get a national championship, and then your folks can't even tackle. I mean, it's as if they don't, tackling and that don't even go together. They don't even know what that even is. Poorly attempted tackle. They wasn't tackling. They was mistackled, poorly. I mean, that was just atrocious. And let alone the coverages that they were doing. Again, the mishaps, all that kind of stuff is not what you're going to get out of Indiana, like I mentioned. So all the things I'm looking at, I'm like, Indiana would have did. They would have been doing this. They would. So that's how I'm measuring. I'm looking at exactly what Ole Miss do and how Indiana would have fared in those situations where they would have executed, because there was opportunities for Ole Miss to score touchdowns even, and they didn't. They kicked field goal or whatever, and all this, and those would have been touchdown drives for Indiana. You see, and even in situations where they end up having to punt the ball, they would have been extended drives, all that kind of stuff. Indiana would have executed. They would have found a way to execute. And so those things there, I mean, I look at that and I'm like, my goodness. And then when you look, going back to the defense, when you look at some things that Ole Miss did in attacking, getting some sacks and all that, the good plays that they did make, well, that's normal for Indiana. Indiana will make those plays. that's and consistently. You see, they're not going to just see what Ole Miss is just like, okay, they make one play, then they make three bad plays. They make one play, then they make two bad plays. So it's just like, it's no consistency with Ole Miss defense. Well, you're not going to get that with Indiana. They're going to be consistent. And if they're giving cushion and they're catching that ball, then they're going to be tackled right then and there. They're not getting no yak yardage. Okay, they're not getting no yak. And so this is what you have to understand in the scope of the game and how these things will be going. Okay. And so, because again, at the end of the day, if Miami brings the A game, Indiana brings the A game, you still, if you got any kind of good analysis, Indiana will win on that. Their A game versus Miami, both teams' A game, Indiana still wins. So anything less of that, still, Indiana still wins. The differential is Indiana has to play less, okay, has to play less of a good game, less of an A game. I mean, severely less, like C+ something, okay? Because even if they play in a B game, that would be still competitive, okay? Giving up an interception. They don't fumble a lot, so I wouldn't even, more prone to maybe an interception, I would say, versus a fumble, especially out the running back side. Running backs don't fumble hardly ever. Again, they only gave up like about 6 turnovers, 7, 8 turnovers, actually, 2 fumbles, 6 interceptions over the season, and so forth. Then again, that fluky interception that Fernandez threw in the Big Ten championship, you don't even really have to count that one. But anyway, so it's going to take those kind of things, like I said. It's going to take some stuff. And Miami's still at their A-game level. Because if Miami's in anything below A-game level, then it's going to be ball game, like I said. Because even if Miami's on a B game, and then even if Indiana's in a B game, Indiana still wins. And so on and so on. C game, Indiana still wins. So it's going to take Miami at an A game and Indiana at a C, certainly C, possibly B, because possibly B is like still a close game. Indiana A game, it's some cushion there. It's 10 points a lead or more. Okay, 10 to 17 points, stretch. Okay, if they play an A game, because that means they click on all cylinders, like what you see against Alabama, what you see against Oregon. Okay, that's clicking on all cylinders. That's scoring on the majority of your offensive drives. Okay, period. Doing pretty much what you want. Defense is relaxed. Defense is playing ball out, lights out, comfortable. They're not feeling threatened or anything like that. They're not feeling pressured. None of that is going on. They're making sacks. They're doing all this stuff, and so forth. Okay, so with all the other stuff that people are all caught up into, emotionalism, the fandom, and all the other stuff, and trying to dissect, okay, this, that, and the other with regard to this, that, and the other, offensively, defensively, special teams, and what have you. And then even special teams, because, again, Indiana has an edge in the special teams department. In the kicking game, especially starting with their punting game, Indiana has a better punter. Field goal, Indiana has a better punter. That guy from Miami, I wouldn't trust him hard for nothing. That guy, you see that Texas A&M game? They didn't even trust him enough. They were like, no, we got to go for the touchdown. We ain't trying to win this on a field goal because we don't trust that kicker. And I'm more observant to the way Texas A&M played Miami versus what I saw with Ole Miss. Certainly Ole Miss, you ain't watch, and even Ohio State. But even if you take Ohio State, their defense, they only gave up 17 points. Because you got to take away, like if you take away the pick six, offensively, how many points did they score? 17, right? And stuff. And so, again, styles make fights too. So not to necessarily compare this team versus 10, you can look at what Indiana would do versus that situation versus that. Not so much, okay, this how this team was playing and that it did that, as far as that. But style-wise, what I would say is that the Texas A&M defense, and they're the way, because they did enough to win that game, their offense just couldn't execute enough, and you knew that because of the quarterback. He's a run-first quarterback. He's not a set pocket passer guy and all that kind of stuff. He's developing. He's more raw talent than polished talent. Reed from Texas A&M. He's no Fernando Mendoza. And so, again, you given a situation as far as what Indiana would do versus the other team. And there you go. So that's how I look at it. And so, So these factors to me are what resonate about what I've seen in this game, and that's just playing it straight up. So I'm not trying to create and make up something that what my eyes have seen and what my knowledge and understanding of football is. And knowing the fact that just looking out, throwing it out there and saying, okay, this is what you can expect based upon past performance and coming into this and where they're at. And what are your issues and what are your concerns towards? Because, like I said, my trust is more in Cignetti. My trust is more in Indiana. My trust is more in Mendoza. My trust is more into Indiana's offense, Indiana's defense, Indiana's special teams than it is Miami. And Indiana is the favorite. Miami is the underdog. You know they're at home. Like I said, they're going to be hyped up. They're going to be pumped up. But that doesn't sustain itself over the course unless there's going to be some things that they do that Indiana doesn't do that is uncharacteristic. We didn't see that coming. It's going to take, which I don't believe will happen. I strongly don't believe that will happen. I don't believe this team is going to just blunder itself after they know this is a veteran team. This is not, if you're dealing with a younger team, possibly, yeah, you can say, okay, the moment might get too big or this, that, and the other. But not with this case. They're coming in focused and ready and understanding what the mission is and to complete that mission. And so even against that, that's what even will make it even better because they will be beating a team, Miami, on their home field. So they will be beating them on their home field and taking that away. So and again, nothing to take away against Miami. Like I said, good team. They earned their right to be there in the championship and all that stuff. But again, you're only going to have one champion. And that's what you got to look at. Who do you believe will be that champion? And so from this perspective of this person, that will be Indiana. That will be the team that will be hosting up the trophy. Okay? So that's the analysis of it. So I'm going to go with the over on this point spread. That is 8.5 or something like that. I'm going with the over on that. I have picked somewhere around 31 to 17. That's just because I'm saying like a last minute kind of touchdown or whatever, field goal or something. But I'm saying that Indiana will control the game. And you will get a sense by halftime where this is going. Because if they're up by 10 at halftime, like I said, then they're going to come out after halftime like it's 0-0 and keep doing what they're doing. And at that point, it's about chewing up clock and keeping that cushion, at that point. If Indiana's behind and depending on if they get the ball or not to start the second half and all that stuff, nonetheless, because if they come out and they're behind, then they need to score on that first drive. If they are ahead at halftime, then and then Miami has the ball, or even if they're behind and Miami has the ball, then they want to stop them, get a 3 and out or something, and even if not a 3 and out, stop them from scoring primarily, and then come back and then score, and so forth and so on. If Indiana gets the ball and they are ahead, and then they come and score again, then folks are going to be heading toward the exits by the end of the third quarter. Miami people will. They're going to be heading toward the exits before that third quarter's over with, because that's going to take Miami out of the game. They game plan for it, which is running the ball primarily, and they're not going to be able to do that if they're behind by 17, 20 points or something, whatever. Then they're going to have to be chuckling, and then that's going to put Beck and more, in a situation where he's going to be more prone to throw in another pick. Okay. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was a pick six at that, too, and so forth. So, I mean, there's different scenarios to where this game can play out, but I'm just giving you based upon, again, the analysis that I see with it as relating to Indiana. And if they have the lead relative to the second half and where that goes. And if Miami has a lead, where that could possibly go. And again, if Miami is running the ball, they're doing what they want to do, and you seeing uncharacteristic things, key qualifier in this I'm talking about is uncharacteristic things on the part of Indiana to help Miami. That's what it's going to take. Because if they're not doing uncharacteristic things, then Indiana's a better team. And Indiana will win the game however they win the game. Whether it's a close game, whether it's a blowout, they will win the game. And the only way I see Miami winning the game primarily is, like I said, a below A game on the part of Indiana, along with a calamity of errors, uncharacteristic penalties, turnovers, and all that kind of stuff. Just getting beat off the ball. Like I said, not being able to stop the Miami run game. Their defense looking like Ole Miss, essentially, and others that Miami has just ran the ball on and all that kind of stuff. But again, the resume doesn't show that with Indiana because they have gone up against power running teams with effective running games, okay, such as Iowa, okay, who has a very good run game there. Oregon prior to from the first matchup, okay, there. And even going as far back as the first game itself against Kennesaw State, wasn't it Kennesaw State? The guy who was running all over the field on first play of the game, ran 75 yards on him. But what did they do? Adjust, okay? So, like I said, they will take a punch. Like I said, Miami's going to get some punches in. They're going to get some things, but again, it's the sustainability of those things. It's the ideal. Can they do that over the course of a game? We're not talking about, okay, they get 5 runs here or 10 or, one little miss play because, Oregon did that. They had a couple little things in there what they did, but it wasn't enough to keep them in the game. It wasn't enough to where you thought that they was going to win the game outside of when they tied the score 7-7. Okay, because it was like they counter-punched back to Indiana. But then soon after that, when Indiana got the ball for real with their offense and they went down the field and scored and then took back control over that. And then now Oregon, therefore, could not counter-punch at them. Then going up at that point to 21-7, then I knew it was game over. I knew it was going to be a game from the start of that first pick six that, okay, Indiana's here to play, and this is going to be something, right? I just knew that momentum drive because, but was I surprised when Oregon came in support? No, because again, I respect Oregon, and I know Oregon has a good team, okay, and so forth. So, and then I also recognized that Indiana's defense was still adjusting, trying to, they probably was a little lax because they got the pick six, so they was probably feeling a little bit overconfident in some sense to adjusting to what Oregon was doing. But like I said, they regrouped on that sideline and they figured and said, hey, no, let's flip this script back. Let's take control of this game. Let's dominate this game. They got us on that, but let's flip this. And sure enough, that's what happened. So, so those are the things that I look at. Those are the things that I stand with regard to how I see this game. So again, my score prediction is, again, Indiana 30 or more and Miami 17 or less. Okay, so that's kind of like my floor to Indiana and my ceiling to Miami. And if those numbers don't add up and there's somewhere in between that it's like 28, 20, 30 or something like that, then that'd be what it is. But I'm just stating I don't see the Indiana's defense giving up that many points like that. Not unless it's some garbage time stuff, but not just atrociously giving up that many points to a Miami team. Unless, like I said, there's a calamity of horrors that happen in this game. So there you go. All right, so that's it for my preview to the national championship game. You heard it, and we'll see how that comes back, because I will come back with my post-game analysis and where I was right and where I was wrong with. And I'll live and stand by that. So I have no problem with that. I have no apology about if Indiana doesn't do it, then we'll go over that. We'll look at that. I will look at that and see what it was that they didn't do to why they didn't win this game, and then why Miami won the game. So there you go. All right. Talk to you soon. Next time, right here on College Sports and More with Rashad B.